Professor Muhammad Tamer, Mahmoud memorial is located in Cancer Center. His main interest is molecular subtypes of breast cancer. We'll be speaking today about local regional therapy and the genomic level.
Sorry for the delay, technical problems.
Good morning. Sorry for the technical delay. We have tried it before, but we'll go ahead now. So what I'm trying to talk to you today about is how are we going to change our local regional therapy based on the molecular subtype. Last year I left you with this slide. This is by Chuck Guru and Teresa Sorley, showing that there were at least 4 molecular subtypes that we know of: the luminal A, luminal B, basal subtype, and HER2 amplified subtype. And they did all that based on hierarchical method. And they used molecular subtyping, looking at genes that are amplified versus genes that are activated versus those that are not activated. And the luminal subtype were more like the ER positive, and the basal were the ER negative. And later they found that there were 2 subtypes in the luminal A and luminal B, and the basal subtype is the basal and the HER2 positive, and some of them are also normal-like, but they think that the normal-like is probably just contamination from cells. What they found that these subtypes eventually translate into a difference in survival. And that was a very important observation. And they concluded, and I'm going to quote Teresa Sorley, the differences in gene expression pattern among these subtypes are likely to reflect basic difference in cell biology of these tumors. On this basis, one might consider these molecular subtypes as separable breast diseases, which means these are different diseases that look like cancer, but affecting the same organ. So what I'm trying to do today, answer a few questions for you. First, I'm going to talk about the local recurrence and its impact by subtype. And then I'm going to talk about, do we have to have wider margin or bigger surgery for more aggressive disease? How are we going to address the auxiliary surgery for these aggressive disease? And how does the response to chemotherapy in these different subtypes impact on our surgical intervention? So Fadak reviewed approximately 3,000 patients, 1,500 of them had breast conservation, and used a constructed microarray to rebuild those subtypes. And they divided the patient into luminal A, luminal B, HER2, and so on and so forth. And they concluded that the lowest risk of local recurrence is the luminal A subtype, and the highest risk is in the HER2 enriched and basal-like subtype. Mind you, this is before the use of anti-HER2 therapy. They did the same for patients who had mastectomy, still found the same observation that the lowest recurrence in luminal A and the highest local regional recurrence in HER2 enriched and basal-like subtype. So should we tailor our surgery based on the subtype? Should we do more aggressive operation based on the molecular subtype, which means do bigger operation and bigger surgery, particularly for those patients who have HER2 positive and those that are triple negative? Now, we know that patients who have positive margin have a higher chance of local recurrence. And in the past, there was no definition what a negative margin was. Some people quoted grossly negative, or no ink on tumor, 1 millimeter, 2 millimeter, or 5 millimeter. The SSO and the ASTRO joined their effort, and they commissioned Namat Husami to do a meta-analysis, and she reviewed 33 studies that reported on local recurrence and the margin size. And these 33 studies included more than 28,000 patients, and there were 1,500 recurrences in those studies. All these patients had breast conservation and radiation treatment. for the treatment of their breast cancer. And the follow-up was approximately 6.5 years, the median follow-up in these studies. And they found that if you have a positive margin, a very close margin, then there's a much higher, double the risk of local recurrence. But when they did a meta-analysis, they found that the width of the margin did not predict local recurrence. And they found that no ink on tumor is more than enough as a negative margin. On top of that, they concluded that there was no evidence that wider margin will decrease ipsilateral tumor recurrence in young patients. Those who have unfavorable biology, which means those that are triple negative or those who are HER2 positive, in lobular carcinoma in situ, or those who have extensive intraductal bone. And the conclusion of the SSO and the ASTRO was that this is more than enough, but clearly you should individualize the patient, and it depends on the type of patient you can tailor, but you don't need to have extremely wide margin. Now, in order to review that, what we did at Sloan Kettering, my colleague Melissa Pawlowski reviewed all the patients who were triple negative tumor, and she divided the patient into two groups: those who have less than 2 millimeter margin versus those that have larger than 2 millimeter margin. And you could see they were very similar patients. And at 5 years, the local regional recurrence in less than 2 millimeter was 4.7%, and those that was more than 2 millimeter, 3.7%. No difference in local regional recurrence in triple negative if you have wider margin. And in order to investigate that further, a colleague of ours at Memorial Zoomstag and a colleague reviewed and compared breast conservation to mastectomy, which is the biggest operation we could do in breast surgery. And there were approximately 450 patients who had mastectomy versus breast conservation of approximately 200 patients. There was no difference in local recurrence with a long-term follow-up. There was no difference in disease-free survival or overall survival. So clearly, there's no difference in much wider margin in triple negative. But what about HER2 positive? So what we did, we wanted to look at what is the incidence of local regional recurrence before the use of anti-HER2 therapy. And Keith and colleagues at Memorial reviewed our data and found in 70 patients who were HER2 positive, had lumpectomy and radiation therapy, T1, T2 tumor, and 0, the local regional recurrence at 3 years, 7%, very high. What happened when we started using anti-HER2 therapy? The same type of patient with 3-year follow-up, just by using anti-HER2 therapy, the local regional recurrence dropped from 7% to 1%. Was that true for mastectomy? So what we did, also we did the same study by Lanning and other colleagues, and this is T1 to T3 tumor, N0 and positive, patient who had modified radical mastectomy plus minus radiation therapy, pre-neoadjuvant chemotherapy, anti-HER2 therapy, the local recurrence at 5 years was almost 7%. And when we started using anti-HER2 therapy, the local regional recurrence dropped to 1.5%. So it is not the width of the margin that decreases the local recurrence, it's more the appropriate chemotherapy that we use and the targeted therapy that we use. So the answer to this question, should we tailor the surgical intervention based on the subtype? Clearly no. Surgery does not trump biology. The anti-HER2 treatment and the appropriate chemotherapy will trump the bad biology. Now let me move to the second part. How should we handle the axilla, particularly in the high-risk tumor? Is sentinel node biopsy only sufficient in patients who are node negative, or those who are triple negative, and those who are HER2 positive? we put these patients are these patients candidate for the Acrosol Z11 trial? And just to remind you what was the Z11 trial, it is any patient who are T1, T2, and clinically node negative. If you do a sentinel node biopsy and you find 2 or less positive node, these patients do not need completion axillary node dissection. Does that apply to those who are triple negative and HER2 positive? And let me try to answer these 2 questions for you. And the first question, is sentinel node biopsy enough? I think was answered very well by the NSABP B32. And the patients were randomized to sentinel node biopsy and axillary node dissection, approximately 2,800 patients, to another group who only had sentinel node biopsy, and these patients had an axillary node dissection only if they had the sentinel node was positive. So what they compared our patient who had a sentinel node biopsy and an axillary node dissection, but they were found to be node negative, to those patients who had a sentinel node biopsy only, and they were node negative. There were 2,000 patients here and approximately 2,000 patients here. And when they compared these 2 groups, there was no difference in overall survival and no difference in disease-free survival. So clearly, sentinel node only is more than enough when you have a sentinel node that is negative, irrespective of the subtype. Because I still hear people saying, well, this patient is triple negative, we should remove all the nodes. The data does not support that. Now, in order to answer the second question, are these patients candidate for the Z11 trial? Our fellow, Dr. Ugras, reviewed our experience. Approximately 11,500 patients between 1998 to 2010. All these patients had surgery at Sloan Kettering. And we divided the patient because we did not do molecular subtyping on these patients. We divided them into HER2, hormonal receptor positive, HER2 negative, hormone receptor positive, HER2 positive, hormone receptor negative, HER2 positive, and the triple negative. And then we wanted to look what is the rate of nodal positivity in those patients that are triple negative. And you could clearly see that the incidence of patients having LVI or positive node is the lowest in the HER plus, the hormonal receptor positive, HER2 negative, and in the triple negative, 41% and 40%. And it's the highest in patients who are HER2 positive, 49 and 53%. And when you look at more than 4 nodes, still the triple negative has the lowest rate. Now, remember, these are patients without adjusting for size, for age, for lymphovascular invasion, and the tumor grade. So we did a multivariate analysis, including the size of the tumor, the age of the patient, the presence of LVI, and the grade of the tumor, looking at what are the lowest risk of nodal positivity. And it turned out that the triple negative has the lowest rate of nodal positivity. So the cause of the local recurrence in the triple negative is not simply because of the lymphangitic spread. It is probably because we do not have an appropriate chemotherapeutic agent for those tumors. The lower rate of local regional recurrence in hormonal receptor positive is because we are using tamoxifen, and we have dropped the local recurrence with the use of tamoxifen by 50%, and we increased that drop in local recurrence when we used AI. And in the HER2 positive tumor, we have been using targeted anti-HER2 therapy and clearly dropped the local recurrence. And still the triple negative, we have not been able to drop the local regional recurrence because of the lack of targeted therapy in that group of patients. So is sentinel node biopsy only appropriate for patients who are node negative, who are triple negative? Absolutely yes. And are these patients candidate for the Acrosol Z11 trial if they are triple negative or HER2 positive? Absolutely yes. Now, are these patients candidate for radiation therapy or not? Just to attract you to come this afternoon, I'll talk about that in the afternoon. So stay put. Now let me me talk about the last part of my presentation. How does the response to neoadjuvant chemotherapy affect our surgical options? Now, Guarneri looked at the experience in MD Anderson, 1,700 patients, divided them to hormone receptor positive and hormone receptor negative, and found that in hormone receptor positive, only 8% of the patient achieved a pathologic complete response after neoadjuvant chemotherapy. However, in hormone receptor negative, 24% of the patient achieved a PCR. Another group looked at triple negative versus non-triple negative and found that in the non-triple negative, only 11% achieved pathologic complete response, whereas in the triple negative, 22% achieved the pathologic complete response. What about the patient who are HER2 positive? And I'd like to thank Chan Dao, who was a colleague of mine in Sloan Kettering. She gave me those slides. And you could see in the studies where this is from the Anderson, this is the NOAA trial, they gave patients who are HER2 positive, this is without anti-HER2 new therapy, the PCR is 26%. Look what happened when we added anti-HER2 new therapy. The pathologic complete response, which means there's no residual tumor, 65% of the patient, between 43 to 65. And even if you look at the trial, who demanded a very strict definition of pathologic complete response, which means no in situ, no invasive, and no negative. Between 30 to 40% of these patients, when you give them anti-HER2 new therapy, pre-surgery, they achieve a complete pathologic response. There's no evidence of disease in the breast or in the axilla. Now we have dual anti-HER2 new therapy that is giving the neoadjuvant setting, and the pathologic complete response is between the high 50s to the low 60s%, and even in those who have very high definition of PCR, it's in the high 40s to the low 50%. Now, this is a review looking at the experience of the United States using the National Cancer Database between 2010 to 2011, approximately 20,000 patients who had neoadjuvant chemotherapy, twice, 2.3 times, those who are triple negative achieved pathologic complete response compared to those who are ER positive HER2 negative, and those who are ER negative HER2 positive, 4 times the rate of pathologic complete response. So how would that pathologic complete response impact on our surgical decision? Well, we know that neoadjuvant chemotherapy does not improve survival. However, neoadjuvant chemotherapy improves breast preservation. So if you have a patient with a large tumor who's triple negative or HER2 positive, we strongly recommend that you give them neoadjuvant chemotherapy, because you will be able to preserve the breast in these patients with very minimal side effect. But now there's a new concept in using neoadjuvant chemotherapy, and this is in patients who have a palpable node or positive axilla. And based on the Z1071 trial, we know that if you use neoadjuvant chemotherapy, you can, in 40% of the patient, you have a completely negative node. And all these patients, you do not have to subject them to an axillary node dissection. You can simply do a sentinel node biopsy on them and prove that they're node negative and do not complete the axillary node dissection. Hence, you minimize the side effect to these patients. I cannot share with you our data from Memorial Sloan Kettering Cancer Center because we have not presented that paper yet. It would be presented at the SSO, so stay tuned for that data. But what we found in patients who are node positive and who are HER2 positive and triple negative, the rate of complete resolution of the node, of the disease in the node, is extremely high. And that paper will be presented at the SSO this year, so please stay tuned to that paper. So in summary, I would like you to review with this comment that breast conservation is more than appropriate for triple negative and HER2 positive tumor, and why the resection does not decrease local recurrence in these subtypes. Sentinel node biopsy only is the way to go for all tumors that are clinically node negative, and once you do the sentinel node biopsy, you prove them negative, that's all what you need to do, and you should feel comfortable and not completely dissecting the X-ray. And the ACOSOG Z11 trial should be applied on all subtypes, and I strongly recommend using neoadjuvant chemotherapy because it increases the rate of breast conservation, and particularly in patients that you know they have node-positive disease, because you could downstage the axilla and avoid axillary node dissection, which is required more surgery. I'd like to thank you for your attention, and I don't know if King Tut was paying attention here or he was asleep. Those of you who are trying to imitate King Tut, stay away. Thank you very much.